All right, welcome to a very special episode of Cosmic Road today, where we are joined by author and researcher David Velasco. Welcome to the show, David.
Well, thank you, Jack. Thank you.
I'm really excited about this interview. I've been looking forward to this one. David is awesome. He's gone to South America, and among other things, he's talked to the locals about. And correct me if I'm wrong, because his book, "The Message of Nazca," isn't in English yet. But my understanding is you've gone to the South America and you've talked to the locals about legends and rumors, among other things, trying to make sense of the Nazca mummies. Is that an accurate way of saying, describing it?
Yeah, yeah, that's correct, Jack. That's correct. Yes.
Okay, awesome. How did you get into this?
So the good question, right? So I came to the case back in 2016. A friend of mine sent me some pictures. I remember I believe it was Maria, right? When the case was just exploding. And my first reaction was this is fake. I mean, I'm a 46 years old. I've been following the UFO phenomena for 30 years. I love Zechariah Sitchin, Eric von Daniken. I'm kind of that line of thought. So I believe I'm very open-minded. But the first time I saw this, I thought it was not. I mean, it was fake. It's a hoax. And then the case came back to me 2 years after that. I believe this was 2018 or so. And then I got more deep into studying this, Then the COVID came, and all that. And I spent, I believe, 4 years investigating, reading a lot, traveling a lot, about if this is real or not. My thesis was, okay, if this is real, if this is a real phenomenon, it has to be recorded somewhere in the Andean lore, in the myth, in the chronicles, the old books that the conquerors and Spaniards wrote about what they heard from the Andeans, right, back in the 15th, 16th century, and also in the studies in the mid 20th centuries in Peru. So for my surprise, I found a lot of stuff, a lot of information that it's a confirmation that this Nazca mummies case, if you want to call it that way, has let's say a floor that is in the traditional, in the oral traditions, is in the lore, in all those, in the folklore of Peru, on the ancient inhabitants of Peru, Bolivia, Ecuador, and even Chile and Argentina.
Okay, so what did you find?
So I found a lot of stuff, but some of those are in my first book. The book is actually split into four, I believe. So it was not easy to, let's say, concentrate all the information that I found in one particular book in 300 pages or so. So I mostly concentrated on Peru and Bolivia and the Andean, how you call it, the big Andean area. So all those parallels with Egypt, Sumer, the Dogon in South Africa, and so on, it's on a separate book because it was honestly too much. So what I found is, so there is a strong connection between the ancient inhabitants of the big Andean area and their gods. It's a different way of thinking as we think in the gods in our Western way of thinking. They live with these gods, these entities, this kind of people for them. It's very real, it's very tangible. It's not I mean, they have their gods that are not visible, the visible gods, the invisible gods, but they are living with these entities on a very complementary way. They kind of honor their gods, they help their gods, and they receive in exchange protection and wisdom. So it's not like it's like they were seeing UFOs coming from the sky and receiving these gray entities. It's not like that. It's hard to explain, but when you go there, you travel there, you talk to the people, you visit the places, you you get the feeling this is very real. This is very from this planet. This is an Earth thing, It's kind of human. It doesn't feel like an foreign entities. They're very from here. It makes you think what is actually extraterrestrial and what is not. That makes me think that these beings are more than extraterrestrial, are from here. Maybe somewhere in far past. I don't know what happened, but these entities, the Nazca mummies and all these type of beings, that this wide variety, the bodies that we're finding these days, makes me think like they are as human as you and me. The word human is misunderstood.
Yeah, well, they were definitely a physical presence in the lives of the peoples of Nazca. As far as I know, they seem to have been depicted in their artwork. It was the humans that seemed to have mummified them. There was some sort of interaction between the beings and the humans of the time. Do you think you have a greater understanding of what that interaction was? Did they revere them as gods?
So they were gods for them, but in a different way. They were interacting, let's say, lively with them. This is not gods that you don't see. The gods are with them. And I know you have been interviewing people a lot about these new skulls and new bodies, that are supposed to be found. So if you see these all these bodies are, I mean, it's are all different. Right? You have the small ones like Josefina, then you have Maria, right, and then you have Sebastian and all the different, now that type of bodies, and now everybody's saying, we have different races, and interbreeding. I don't know, but they have all several features in common, right? One is the skull. So the small beings, the 25 feet tall beings, right? They have a long skull proportionally to their body. You can say it's kind of elongated skull. And all the beings that we have been found has this feature. Also the tridactyl feature, right? But the skull. So what does that mean? And the skull is a very attractive feature, right? For years we have been, fascinated by this. Many people are saying, these are extraterrestrial. This is not be possible that a human can have its skull elongated that way. But it's actually proven that this elongated skull was a practice, made with tools, wooden, cotton, fabrics, to actually fabricate this shape in the skull. So the question is why, and now we found these Nazca mummies. So what are we seeing here? So the ancient people that artificially create this feature in their skulls were replicating what? I mean, it's customary to think, okay, they were, like lords, different political, religion, status, but they're replicating something, So, and it's very interesting that one thing that you find in the traditions is the belief that the soul is in the skull. The vital spirit of the humans are in the skull. So maybe it's in the brain, right? Maybe the pineal gland, So, okay, so if that's the case, then you have the trepanation. You have seen these elongated skulls with deep holes in the skulls, like a trepanation when they cut a piece of the bone, right? They take it out and then they replace it with a metal plate, maybe silver or gold. And the people after that surgery live because the skulls that we have found are calcified around the insertion, the removal of the piece of the bone in the skull. So what is that saying? So we have metal plates in the Nazca mummies, right? We have these metal implants. We have osmium in one of them, and the osmium is a rare metal used for communications. So if the skull is in the soul is in the skull, sorry, why opening the skull? Why putting metal plates in that skull? What they were trying to do, they were trying to communicate, they were trying to improve their communication among themselves, among, the celestial world. So that's the kind of the things that you find in the oral traditions that I believe are an extra contribution to what all the scientists and have been found along these months in the investigations that you've been covering, right?
So the oral traditions talked about trepanation and actually head surgery and the spiritual implications of that.
Yes.
Wow, wow. Then, do you believe that the Nazca mummies or the Nazca beings, or even when they were alive, there was trepanation done on them?
I mean, we haven't found that in the X-rays on the tomographies to these bodies, but one thing that you also find in the oral tradition is that this you can have, let's say, an interbreeding between humans and these entities. I mean, they can, but after that, the generations that will come after that hybridation are more, let's say, Homo sapiens than Homo Nazca. So this, let's call it Nazca gene, is as a recessive gene. So along the time, if these beings are crossing with interbreeding, I know it's the right word in English, but crossing with
Either one will work.
Yeah, with sapiens, this is becoming a recessive gene. And
Okay.
if you recall,
all right. I just got to break in here. Could this possibly be an explanation for the elongated skull beings of Paracas? The genuinely elongated skull beings, not the ones, that they arrived at that with, procedures, skull binding. Could those elongated skull beings be interbred with, beings like the Nazca mummies? And it was recessive, so they, have 5 fingers and or more human-like. But they kept the elongated skulls.
Yes, it's one possibility that there were real elongated skull peoples, but because it's a recessive gene, after the interbred, this gene was lost. So one way to recover that, like this divine feature where the soul is, it's to produce artificial elongated skulls with all the tools, with the wooden and the fabrics and all that stuff. That's very interesting. That's
No, that's super fascinating, David. I love it.
Yeah.
So, all right. So the humans were practicing, these procedures to emulate the beings, or maybe to gain the abilities of the beings. Is that why were they performing these procedures?
So I don't know if you recall during the, I believe it was the second hearing in Mexico. At the end of the hearing, there was a Peruvian doctor that, I'm sorry, I didn't look for this before our talk, but this is a Peruvian doctor at the very end of this hearing that shows he tells a story, right? Back in the 50s, an old lady came to his practice with a problem in her hand. The problem was that she had three fingers in her hand, but it was a human like you and me, you know? And he kept X-ray, and he showed that X-ray on the hearing. No, he showed it. And so what I believe that this was a recessive gene, they were trying to through these trepanations, through putting these implants in the skull after the trepanation, they were trying to recover something that was lost because of this interbreeding. And for example, if you go to Machu Picchu, I know if you have been there, and it's in Peru,
I
in
haven't, but I
Cusco.
would love to go.
Oh, anytime, man. Just let me know. Um, there is a very well-known temple that is called the Temple of the Three Windows, right? Where supposedly the founders of the Inca dynasty came to this earth from the Ukupacha, which is the lower world. And the temple is, you see, three windows that is called tocos, the Quechua word for that. But it's actually five. The thing is that the right extreme toco window and the left extreme window are closed. So it's actually five. So what you're saying is that it's five, but two are closed. So you have three. So what it's saying, I believe, in a very simplistic way, but a beautifully architectural construction, is that inside us, we have this pterodactyl gene. We have this Nazca beings gene inside of us, but we lost it again because of the recessive gene.
That is amazing, David. I love it. I wish there was a way that we could, test that, and find, these people that may have been descended from the
Yeah.
Nazca beings. That's just incredible. All right. So I've got to ask, because you were talking about, doing research into the ancient texts and stories. What information from those sources were you able to find about those beings?
So what it comes to my attention is that the tridactyl feature, you cannot find it in the ancient text. I mean, these are not actually texts as in the Mayan culture. These are oral tradition. It's only oral tradition, so that the Spaniard trying to reproduce with translation from Quechua to Spanish. So in those texts, you don't find anything related to three fingers, not at all. But it's everywhere in the textiles, in the ceramics. It's everywhere. You all guys have seen this. But why not in the oral traditions? So I believe there are two options, two answers to that. One is that this was a too, let's say, well-kept secret to be told to the Spaniards. The other solution to that question is this was, so customary for them to be living with these beings with three fingers that is not worthy to mention. There is I believe it's ethnographic work from the 60s, that an investigator talked to a local, that has to locate the skull, and this investigator asked to this local what happened to your skull, why it's elongated, and surprised, and the local is surprised back because he is surprised. Why are you surprised? Because my skull is like this. You know, why there's nothing to explain.
It's
You
just
know,
the shape
it
of my
was
head. What's up?
what's up? You know, it's my culture. It's how we live here. You know, maybe that's why. So the three fingers, you're not gonna find any stories related to that. He was so on a daily basis thankful that I'm living with these humans, this these Homo Nazca humans. You know, so what doesn't worth any mention to them.
But they
Yeah,
did mention beings. They did mention non-human beings, or not.
yeah, they mentioned. I mean, they are they have these gods that some of them are described as small beings. You know, some are so small as 15 centimeters. That is, what is that? 2 inches? I
About
don't
a
know.
foot.
Seven
Yeah.
inches?
Yeah.
About a third, right? 7 inches? Oh, no, less, no, 5 inches. That's small. Like as small as the Atacama being the small Atacama humanoid. Remember that?
Yeah. Yeah. Tiny.
Discovered in Chile, the tiny one, yeah. And it's there. I mean, they are talking like freely in the 60s to this new generation Peruvian investigators. Now they can talk more freely about that because there's no any hunt for idolatries. You know, they're not risking their lives talking about the more deep oral traditions. And I mean, it's there. And also, it's I know you have been asking a lot of this giant skull. I'm not very familiar with that particular discovery, if there is any. But the way the ancients describe these beings is very small or very tall, blonde,
Blonde.
like giants and really small ones.
Did you
You
say
know, and
blonde?
it, blonde, yeah, blonde hair,
Blonde giants.
blonde giants,
Hmm. Okay.
blonde
Okay.
giants, and small beings. I mean, this blonde feature is not uncommon in Paracas. It's been found a lot of skulls with red hair, and it's in the myth, the oral traditions, the red hair, the small beings with red hair coming from the underworld. You know, you can find those type of stories, right?
Yeah, no, it's fascinating that South America seems to have so much mythology related to the underworld. And it seems like what little we know about the Nazca beings, they may have lived under the ground. Yeah, and they might still. I mean, according to the book I just read by Thierry Jamon, the Tomb Raiders, Mario, and the others were seeing living beings at the site that were underground.
Yeah.
Hard to confirm any of that. Did you get a chance to talk to any of the Tomb Raiders?
No, I haven't had the chance to talk to them directly. But the this tradition of the underworld, it's I mean it's fascinating. They believe that the universe is composed of three, let's say, the three spaces. So there's the Kai Pacha, that is the world that we live in, the human world and the animal kingdom world, the Kai Pacha. And beneath us is the underworld that is called Uku Pacha. And they believe that the Uku Pacha has, like, say, a triangular form or like cone shape, right, form, where everything inside that world is small.
S-
Okay,
Small, okay.
and 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 so you have the Uku Pacha, and you have the Kai Pacha, our word, and then you have the Hanak Pacha, with the celestial vault in our concepts. And those three worlds are interrelated in several ways. One of the most fascinating ways is that these are reflections from the world in the stars, the Hanak Pacha, the world of the gods. So that's a real image mirrors arranged. You know, the world of the gods is reflecting in the human world and also is reflecting in the underworld. But the perfect reflection of the world of the gods in the heavens, let's say, is the underworld.
Do you believe
This
the
is not our
mythology
world.
is based on something real?
I do. I do believe. I do believe. I do believe so. Um, I do believe so. And that's the way they articulate this. It's absolutely fascinating, and then makes you think. How the European religion, when came here with the Catholics and and Christians concepts, merge, or this syncretism that is called, right, merge with the oral traditions. This oral tradition still remains inside the Catholic beliefs, and you can see that to this very day, right? And one thing that happened with this um, syncretism or the imposition of the new religion, the new dominant religion, is that the underworld became the hell, because it's not very different than what we think in the Western religions. You have the hell, this world, and the heavens. But so it makes you think why they associated the underworld, but it's a reflection of the world of the gods of the ancient beings with hell. It was because these beings were so different. Because these beings were so powerful. It was so unknown for the European men that came back in the 15th century, 16th century. So they said, "This is hell. These are demons." And you find that a lot in the chronicles. These are demons. These are pagans. These are Gentiles. This is not the work of God. And then you have this hunt for idolaters that was absolutely terrible.
Okay, so in your research, when talking to the locals, are there legends or rumors of living current beings running around?
Not in a specific way, but the way they told the stories, it's not in the past. It's happening in the present. So they won't tell you that the things are look at there. No, it's not in the stories. It's not in the oral traditions. But the way it's told is in a present, let's say, in a present sense, in a present, yeah, in present time. It's not like a far past. It's happening now. That's the way they told us.
Have you researched the Native Americans of North America at all and their beliefs? Like some of them believe they were interacting with the Star People. Uh, do those compare at all with the peoples of South America?
Yes, they do compare a lot. I have one beautiful book here that I'm finishing about the Hopi. Um,
The Hopi
so
were
you have the
definitely connected.
definitely you have the Ant people, the Ant people. So I mean, it's not like people like looks like ants to me. What does it mean an ant? It's people that are beings that during all the creation, creation process of the mankind, they are always present to support the gods in that creation process. That's the role of the Ant people in the Hopi myth, in the Hopi beliefs. So every time that comes a flood, a destruction, all the ones that are supposed to be saved and the others killed, the ones that are supposed to be saved goes to the Ant people and they take care of those. And when it's time, they emerge from the underworld to the Kaipacha.
Also, the Hopi, I know this from personal experience because I have a friend that's done this. The Hopi elders teach a tradition of breath work, a very complicated breath work. You could call it like a meditation or exercise. It takes like a few hours to do, but it can produce DMT in the brain. in
Awesome.
similar way the
Wow.
ayahuasca in South America.
Oh, wow.
And I wonder if similar beings were teaching them modalities of contact.
There is something, there are very similarities across America. There is something that these beings had, this relationship with humans, um, the way they interact, the way they serve each other, the way they communicate among themselves. Um, it's fascinating. I mean, for example, remember when we were discussing about the skulls and there are a lot of depictions especially in the Paracas textile when you see these beings are sometimes tridactyls, like a big skull, and they are all like connected in the brain, in the head. I have a depiction here. Let me show you somewhere in the book. To so I believe that this a depiction of how they connect among themselves, how the how these, for example, these metallic implants were supposed to work with these things, Well, not find it now. Oh, here it is. This is the English. I'm working on the English, edition. So you see,
Yeah, I see
can
it.
you see?
What are we looking at?
So what are we looking at? So you have this pterodactyl being, like reptilian features, reptilian here, all connected through the skulls. I
Okay,
mean,
yeah, yeah.
there is no explanation for this type of depictions. You see the archaeologists, the historians are going to say, these are mystical beings, but they don't have a clue, when, unless, of course, you incorporate you factor in another concepts. You cannot explain this. The only way you can explain this is thinking about new in the connections of these beings with the ancient um, Peruvian and Bolivian.
How do you think they were interacting? Based on your research, what do you think was going on?
So, um, I mentioned that they live with this God, this being, right? But I believe at some point something happened. This held this good relationship, that they had, at some point broke. Um, Maybe it was the arrival of the conquerors. Maybe it was because of the Inca. Maybe way before the arrival of the conquerors. Could be something happened with the relationship with the Inca. There is a story in the chronicles that one very famous Inca ruler um, died after seeing small beings, very very small beings, with a death message. We will come for you. And then the Inca ruler died. That actually happened. He died. There are different stories on how he died.
Yeah, when small
Um,
beings show up and tell you we're coming for you, that's not a good sign.
no, I don't want to be in his position, right? No one wants to. But there is something that the story is telling you about these beings and the Inca. So the Inca, I mean, not only the Inca not embraced, but the Inca were absolutely conquered by the Spaniards. It was a massacre. It was horrible, you know. But somehow the Inca managed themselves to survive this conquer and to survive their beliefs. Their oral traditions survive within the new religion, right? And they and this, the Spaniard, the kings, the virrey that dominated these areas, they kind of were linked to the Inca rulers. You know, it's a new generation of Inca rulers. It was these kings from Spain. So they kind of merged into it, but again, it was horrible and a terrible massacre. But thanks to that, the traditions survived. So but that's like you saying, it was because of the Inca kind of, you know, uh, accepted this and they fight back, but they couldn't. It was absolutely possible. Maybe that relationship between the Inca and the early Spanish conquer product conflict with these beings, right? But because we're talking about these beings, it's a real, it's a present phenomenon, right? It's not like we're found. I mean, we have found some old bodies, but those are not 2,000, 3,000 years old bodies, you know, only 5,000. These are very close to the Inca domination period, you know. Um, so that's one thing. Other thing that you can find in the oral traditions that the Inca were, by the time this Inca ruler received this death message from these small beings, the Inca were moving north to what is today to today's Ecuador. Ecuador is the country right above Peru, right in the north. Um, so what is in Ecuador? So my question is, okay, if that happened because this Inca ruler was moving and conquered more land to the north, what is in Ecuador that maybe is pushing these things to fight back the Inca? In Ecuador, you have, well, like the Tallos Cave, you know, the famous Tallos Cave, where a lot of artifacts were supposedly found, right, with Egyptian features, some features with different cultures, different continents, another artifacts that doesn't seem like any particular culture. It's more like a cross among all other cultures. So if that particular place, the Tallos Cave, sorry, was, let's say, an entrance to the Ucupacha, to the world where these beings were living, and the Inca was, you know, getting there to conquer that area, maybe these things fought back the Inca, you know? And maybe that's one answer on why the relationship with these beings was broke with the Inca at the time.
Is there any indication how long the relationship lasted? I know that one of the giant hands, the tridactyl hands, has been dated to about 7,000 years ago. But it's unclear if any others are that old, or you know, maybe there's some that are older. Do you have any clue how long this relationship lasted when it was good?
You can go back to the flood,
Back to the flood. Do you think it goes back that long?
way back. Yeah.
Well, and by the flood, do you mean, you know, like the Younger Dryas, you know, that era, you know, 12,000
That it
BC,
is.
is it?
The jungle virus. Yes.
Okay,
And
well,
even and it could be way earlier than that, but certainly to that era.
there have been people dated in South America. How long? Like 30,000 years ago, something. It's quite extensive. It's quite human presence in South
Yeah.
America goes quite far back. So
Yeah.
why not an
It
inhuman
is.
presence? Who came first?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And those large fingers, hands you're talking, right? These are the first. You're talking about the first one, right? That were found with the metal plate.
Yeah, yeah.
That you're talking, right? So I'm not sure if those hands are real. I believe I'm more like an artifact created. That's my personal opinion. But the question is the following. Okay, let's say it's an artifact. Let's say it's not. it's a recreation, a reconstruction of an, let's say, an biological piece of a body. It's so old, right? So it should be compared to a ceramic. It should be compared to a textile. Why? Why not consider, let's say, a recreation of a humanoid body that is so, let's say, crafted, that is equivalent to all the other crafts, artifacts you can find from these cultures? Why is it not equivalent, right? So what I'm saying is that the discussion should not be around is this real or not real. It's dated. Yes. It's very old. Yes. It has organic. Yes. So why these guys did that? What they were trying to recreate? What they were trying to recuperate? What were they trying to do with that? And same as the textiles and the ceramics, you know. And so for me, what I'm saying is that I'm not particularly worried if the hand is actually real or not. For me, it's real enough because it's an artifact created way back that is exactly equivalent to a textile that is depicting a three fingers being, that a ceramic in Tiwanaku that is depicting a tridactyl being. You know, that's the way I feel about those hands.
Hey, fair enough. You know, from the research I've seen on the hands, they seem legitimate. They've got tendons. You know, I would like to see more research on the like the gold disc in that one hand. You know, for example, if the because
Yeah.
in some of the implants, they have fused to the flesh and the bone, you know, proving that the beings were alive when the implants were put in. But I don't know if that's the case in the case of the gold disc. I would imagine it is, but I haven't seen the research on that. But if that's the case in that, that would definitely prove that that was a living being and that disc was put in when it was alive.
So
But yeah,
there's in the book, maybe you cannot see it, but this is ceramic, and this is plates with depictions of this three finger hand. And it's
can you bring
actually
it just
very
a little
similar
closer
to,
to the camera?
sure, what about that? Can you see
Okay,
there?
I can see the three-fingered hand on the bottom very clearly.
And then what is that? The plate. You see the plate there? This is the
Yeah,
plate. This is the
yeah.
plate you're talking about.
It's kind of
You
hard
see?
for me to tell what the rest of the picture is showing, but
I will send it to you, or maybe on Twitter. I will post it. And so again, what I'm saying here is it's an, maybe if it's not actually real, it's an artifact. It's a real artifact. You know,
yeah, it's
it
ancient,
was
whatever it is,
created.
right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It is there.
Mario didn't whip it up in his basement or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so I know that you've said some other really interesting things in your interviews. You had some interesting stuff to say about Christopher Columbus, for example.
Yeah. Exactly. So um, yeah. One question is, um, I mean, was this a surprise for them? You know, when they arrived here, they were really surprised what they found. Um, uh, for what I've read in the oral traditions, I don't believe it was a surprise. Makes me think that they knew where they were coming from. They came with a plan. Um, it was I mean, a bad plan, you know, for the people that was here. And led by the Catholic religion or the beliefs in some of the beliefs in the Catholic religion, and and it's very, you know, one feature that I have found is the relationship, and I mentioned this in the post that you're talking about, the relationship of these things with the moon, right? So this for me um, was a surprise to find this. You know, we all know this. I mean, the eclipses are produced by this um, beautiful harmony, right, between the sun, the moon, and the earth. Right? It's unique in the solar system. There's non-planet or moons that can produce what we see on a regular basis in this planet. We're kind of used to, people is kind of used to see eclipses, oh, it's beautiful. But think about it, this perfectly crafted the mathematical relationship between distance and size, is something that makes you think. And and in the traditions of the ancients in the Andean area, they talk about how they are related to the moon, how they came with the moon, and how they have the power to move the moon and produce the eclipses. That was for me was shocking. I wasn't expecting to find that honestly.
Yeah, move the moon. Tell me about that.
So one thing is when we talk, let's say about the Earth, how is the axis of the Earth is rotated, has inclination, right? That's 23.4 degrees, right? So but when you think the other way around, because we always talk about how the axis of the Earth is, let's say, inclining, right? It's falling in something, right? But what is the actual angle that the axis is producing with the solar plane? It's the number that you need to arrive to 90, that is 66.6. So the planet is actually, the fallen planet, the Earth, the fallen planet, is actually rotating in 66.6. And that's it's a loaded number, let's say.
Yeah,
Right?
that's not a happy number. Yeah.
But, well, that's exactly the point, Jack. It's not a happy number for certain religions. For the Andean, doesn't have the load that we generated and inherited because because what we were taught in school, or you're a particular follower of a particular religion, but they didn't feel same way that you and me feel about that number. So they have a myth, the ancients, about a second sun. So the old beings survived the flood. They were like super powerful. They have the way to foresee the future. So they survived this punishment or whatever catastrophic event happened. And then a second son came from the underworld. The son of the underworld in the Andean worldview is the moon. It's the moon. So they believe that this second sun, the moon, arrived and produced a catastrophic event. But at the same time, that event shaped our planet to accommodate our life, the life we know, as we know it. Mankind, the humans, the animal kingdom, that was after that event. It was a destruction, but at the same time, a creation event. This complementary, dually opposites that works perfectly in the Andean world. So, what is that catastrophic event if the moon arrives? So, you can read a lot of scientific papers on how the moon is here. Right? There are a lot of theories out there, but the most, let's say, common view on how the moon arrived here is that it was an errant body that was captured, right, by the gravity force of the planet. There are other theories, that it was another body that collided the Earth, and all the debris was after millions of years rotating around the Earth, got solidified, and turned into this perfect, body. But that collision keep the Earth spinning so fast that it was impossible because of that spinning to produce life, and then they required a second collision from another external body to rebalance the velocity of the Earth. So this kind of theories about, doesn't make much sense. But the one that is more accepted is the errant body that can captured by the gravity. So, and if you think about that, it's not that different what the Indians believe. They mention an era where there was no moon.
That's wild.
The gods created a moon. There was no moon. There was a bad time when there was no moon. So what they're saying is that, and also they mentioned that it was a time with the moon was kind of like new, with no craters and these black spots that we see today, right, when we look at the sky. So what they're saying is not that different what some of these modern scientific theories are saying. This body came, was put in that for whatever reason. Maybe okay, it was captured by or was break, but there was a time that there was no. So what happened if you bring a body to the Earth? You bring a moon to a planet. The axis go wide. So that's also in the scientific papers. So what I'm saying is that the ancient had this belief that there was a time with no moon. The moon came as a second sun from the underworld. It produces enormous destruction on Earth, but also allows our life. And because of that process, the axis of the Earth was inclinated in 23.4 or so degrees. So, if the Earth is 66.6 because of the arrival of the moon, there's entirely different meaning to the number, right? So they ownership these gods. They were related to the moon. If these gods were related to the moon, they were related to this, let's say, concept, to this number, let's say. So if Colon and company came, they knew about this. That's why they wipe out all they can. All they found, they destroy a lot of wakas, a lot of artifacts. We're lucky that the Inca managed to, keep their beliefs, but they destroy everything. And I believe that could be a good reason for that event.
Well, the Spanish certainly did a lot of damage. They killed a lot of people and they destroyed a lot of stuff. It was one of the greatest tragedies in human history. What happened when they came? Um, I but you got to convince me how what is the evidence that they knew about this stuff when they came?
Um, it's hard to find evidence, to be truly honest. If you're looking for a smoking gun, it's not easy to find. But my first answer to that smoking gun is that we are finding now those smoking guns, the Nazca mummies. I
Well, then,
mean, if it weren't for this type of bodies, for these beings, it's very hard to put all these pieces together. But with these beings, you put this extra piece in the puzzle, and then you start kind of seeing the borders of the puzzle. Okay, this goes here, this goes there. So I believe that the discovery of these beings is, according to the oral traditions, is a confirmation that there was something going on here that was way far from what was accepted in the religion at the time in the world.
okay, I've got to get back to the idea of the moon though. Okay. I've researched the moon. There's a strange anomalies about the moon that just don't quite make sense. The Y files, I don't know if you're familiar with the YouTube channel, the Y files, they just put up a 2.5 hour compilation of oddities and anomalies around the moon that just don't make sense. It's almost as if it was artificial or placed there. It's hard to reconcile some of the oddities and the anomalies without involving, ET or, other, something, gods or whatever. So can you tell me more about these gods that were said to have placed the moon? And do they have any relationship to anything involving the Nazca beings? trying to figure out if
So
these were real
yeah,
beings
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and
You're
and
right.
what they were up to.
So in the myth, there is a story that Viracocha, that it was, it's one of the founders, right? These architects of this ancient world. Um, so he created the world before it was a moon. Um, but then, after several creations, he created the stars, he created the moon. You can think these are more, like, say, a poetic way of thinking, right? But again, if you put all the pieces together, it makes you think, right? So they have Viracocha, you have Pachacamac, that is also a very important god. And you have Con, that's the flying god in the Nazca lines. You know? But all these entities um, have, let's say, in common that they are very present in the in the ancient world. Some of this has these different features, like stature, small stature, big head, flying around. One of these gods was, was born after eggs. So you have this all these strange features that seem scattered around, right? And make no sense. Small beings, uh, eggs, gods coming out from eggs. What is that, right? So try to imagine a conventional investigator trying to make sense out of this. For this, there was fantastic stories, like fabulous, fabulous, right? So, but now you kind of make sense of this, right? So we're talking about beings with a reptile features, with the capacity to produce with eggs. You have maybe this recessive gene, right? That's also the oral myth. So these gods are very, say, different among themselves, but they share these features that now we realize were important in the ancient world of this area. Now that we have discovered these Nazca beings.
Okay, I know our time is limited. We only have a few more minutes, but out of all your research,
So
what sticks out at you the most? What
what
is
what?
the what impression do you come away with from all your research?
All right. So I told you at the beginning that it came from a, let's say, more skeptical point of view, right? Then I come to the conclusion that this is real. But for me, what is most hard to explain is that when you travel to these places where these myths were collected, you know, some of these places are very hard to get there. It's Machu Picchu and Cusco is a touristic place. It's not that hard to be there, but other places in Cusco are more, let's say, difficult. I had the chance in a couple of weeks ago to visit an area that is 5 hours from Lima to the mountains, to the Sierra that is called, that is Huarochirí, and that's a huge important place for this myth. And when you go to these places, you get the idea that, this is more human than non-human. It's like, okay, if you have seen a lot of times several episodes of Ancient Aliens, okay, this fantastic pieces of stones crafted, say, wow, how they do this? Okay, but when you go to the place, you see the famous H blocks in Tiwanaku, right? But these weren't made by extraterrestrials. You get the feeling that were made by terrestrial beings. Let's not use for a moment the word human or non-human. The word were created by terrestrial beings, maybe with more advanced tools, right? With different tools. Um, so for me, it's a process that brings more questions than answers. I believe at some point it's easier to say, oh, the UFO came down and the gray came down and brought some tools, but you don't get that feeling when you go to those places. And that's the difficult path with the cases of the Nazca mummies, because they have the classic, let's say, UFO community, right? When it's hard from them to, let's say, combine the UFO, in my personal opinion, with all due respect to that way of thinking, is that they're always looking for the smoking gun, right? But you'll never find it because the government hid it, right? You will never find it. And then you have the contactees, and the contactees they have their own truth, because they see, they talk to the beings, and they receive the message and they communicate the message, but it's his or her message. That's the message. You can take it or not, but that's what they do. And then you have the ancient astronaut theorists, right? They're with this always looking to the marvelous constructions, but not actually combining with all these past ways of thinking. And then you have the Nazca mummies. The Nazca mummies are saying, hey, guys, here's the smoking gun. You were looking for beings, here I am. You were looking for extraterrestrial being, here they are. But how you combine all this way of thinking? That's why I believe the Nazca mummies is still facing a lot of rejection, because it doesn't actually fit in any of these threads, and also it's very. That's what I'm saying at the very beginning. It's very real. It's more like human than non-human, but has all the extraterrestrial features that all the guys were looking for, but in a more human way, let's say, more terrestrial way. So I believe that's the challenge of how to put all these pieces together and have a common view, right? Because this topic is way too big. You need everyone on this, right? Everyone,
Yeah.
all the forces together.
Well, when I first started covering the mummies, people said, Jack, how can you cover this? This is so fringe. This is so woo. And I'm like, no, this is the opposite of that. This is the most nuts and bolts. This is flesh and blood. We've got bodies.
Yeah.
We've got bodies, guys, of non-humans. Anyway, but I think we're making progress. I think more and more people are starting to accept it.
Yeah.
When I first started talking about this, like I would get 60, 70%, or more negative comments about the mummies, but now,
Absolutely.
I had an interview with Jaime Maussan, like 90% of people are like, they've looked at the research, just like I was very skeptical coming onto this, just like you were. It's hard to believe. It just sounds so fantastic and so ridiculous. But once you, look at the research, it's like, these were real. These were real. So I think we're making progress, and I really appreciate you coming on the show to tell us about your research. Where can people find you in your books?
So this is El Mensaje de Nazca. This is available in Spanish in Amazon.com. But soon the English version of this will be published. I'm working on editing, all the stuff. So I'm expecting to have the English version live in, I don't know, 2 months from now, 45 days. I'm always adding extra days, but I hope I can make it for 60 days from now to have this English version of the El Mensaje de Nazca. I believe the name will be different.
This up into 4, right? Is that you? Did you say you had there's 4 books?
Yeah, there are 4 books. It's meant to be like a collection, a series of books. The first one is El Mensaje de Nazca. The second one is the Oracle of the Andes, where I go far from the Andes era, and then I bring to that book the connections with Egypt, with Sumer, with Africa, with China, with Central America, with North America, with the Polynesia, right? So all those different areas from, right, these ancient cultures, I believe they were related. They came to this place. This place was an oracle. They came to visit and see these gods, and that's why you have all these parallels and similarities with other countries, the other cultures. But the third one is the pyramids of fire. That is an actual discovery. I cannot much relate. I cannot say much at this point, but soon I will be um, telling you more about this.
I can't wait to find out. That's a great title. That's such a tease. Yeah. Okay. All right. Pyramids of Fire. Yeah. I can't wait to find out about
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah.
And you have
And
book
the fourth
four?
one, it's called how do you call it? The navel of the world, el ombligo del mundo. It's about how all the ancient constructions are aligned and related one each other. It's very related to what I mentioned initially with the inclination of the axis of the Earth. That's kind of where it goes. And actually, that was my first work. I was working on that one when the Nazca Mummies case came to my window. You know?
I love it.
So that's what I'm looking for. Yeah, that's what I'm working on.
I hope when you get ready to release your next book, you come on the show and tell us about it.
I will be very happy to do so. Thank you, Jack.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today, David. I loved it. It's amazing. I can't wait to read your book.
Yeah, I will send you a copy once I have finished, for sure. You can come with that.
All right. Thank you. Everybody in the comments, please give David a big thumbs up and a thank you and go check out his book.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.